Rebecca Ryan is campaign director of Defund the BBC, because we're going to talk about that now. Over the weekend, Lisa Nandy was spotted doing the rounds on the airwaves, talking about how she wants to do away with the licence fee for the BBC, but instead of making that a good thing, she wants to make it a bad thing, because most people who want to do away with the licence fee say, yeah, change it to a subscription model, just buy the bits of the BBC you want, watch the sport if you want, watch the news if you want, listen to the radio if you want, but you don't have to pay a licence fee for all of it. She now says the best way to replace the licence fee is to actually make it a proper tax. So basically general taxation would be used to fund the BBC, which is about as bad of an idea as I've ever heard. Rebecca, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
They don't get it, do they? I mean, the idea of doing away with the licence fee is to do away with the compulsory nature of paying for something that you don't necessarily watch or listen to. This would be even worse, wouldn't it?
I mean, it's absolutely awful. It seems that this Labour government's answer to everything is to tax it, isn't it?
Right.
I mean, it's...
It's the only thing they know how to do.
Exactly. Where do we begin with it? They're draining the country dry. But the thing is, the paying for the BBC through general taxation has always been this thing that sort of bubbled along in the background and has been less popular, even less popular than the TV licence. It's never had support of more than 10% of the population. It's an awful idea. There are millions of households in this country that don't pay for the BBC anymore. They've been sick to death of it.
Right.
And they don't watch any live broadcast TV, they don't watch BBC iPlayer, and therefore they can legally not pay for the BBC. And so these people would be forced to pay for it, even though they don't consume any live broadcasting. Yeah. It's just outrageous, really. And like I said, it's even more unpopular than the TV licence, which, as we know, 2/3 of the public want to scrap the TV licence. Well, this isn't the answer.
No, it really isn't. So, you know, go back and start again, we suppose, would be the suggestion. I mean, the other story that I've seen this morning, which was quite staggering, is, I don't know if you've seen this in the Mail, basically the makeup department for BBC News, and it's just BBC News. It doesn't cover, you know, I presume every other thing that they do, like Strictly or those kinds of shows. But they want to pay £1 million a year to makeup artists, right, to do the makeup just for BBC News, like Sophie Rayworth, Fiona Bruce, any BBC News kind of, you know, TV show. I mean, we have makeup artists in this building who are great, brilliant, fantastic, but they don't get paid £1 million a year.
Well, this is exactly why the BBC should not be paid for under general taxation, because it has no grasp of what is acceptable budgeting. They, you know, we hear from people who've worked at the BBC who say, you know, the teams there are, you know, 2, 3 times, 4 times the size of other broadcast teams. Right. And this kind of, like you say there with the makeup, they just have no grasp on what is a reasonable budgeting, and therefore it can't be put under general taxation. We need to just scrap the TV licence and make it subscription-only basis, which would mean that people can choose whether they want to pay for that, and they would be motivated by, you know, making some profit, and they'd have to cut, you know, corners where they had to. Right.
I mean, the idea that they would have to have suddenly, you know, no resources whatsoever to do anything. I mean, the numbers of people, I mean, all you've got to do is watch the BBC News, you know, of a night and see all those people sitting in the newsroom. There's thousands of them. You know, I don't know what they're all doing, because they miss half the stories that we do. They don't even cover them.
Well, that's the thing. They've not been covering the grooming gang scandal, have they?
They
use what they want to cover when it suits them. And part of this thing with the TV licence and Lisa Nandy's story is that the BBC have said that they will do this mass conversation with the country to find out what the country wants out of the BBC going forward. But we know what the answer to that will be already, because the BBC is it would be on level with the Kremlin for propaganda, wouldn't it, if it was a state-owned organisation? But they're already very good with the secure income they have from the TV licence at the moment. They're already very good at sort of marking their own homework and making themselves look sort of extremely popular with the country. But we see time and time again in the polls that people are sick to death of this. And as we see, 500,000 households per year are scrapping the TV licence. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is absolutely awful. They can afford to send people to Syria, they can send people to Los Angeles for the fires, but they can't find their way to Oldham to do that story on the grooming gang. It's funny that. Rebecca, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Campaign director of Defund the BBC. £1 million on makeup. I mean, my makeup's good, but it's not worth £1 million. You might say otherwise, of course.